Hey everybody, it's Anna. So I'm coming live today to respond to something that came up for me yesterday at my husband's sermon. He delivered yesterday. He's a minister here in Athens, Alabama. And one thing he talked about was this principle of God's timing. This is how it came up. He was talking about how we pray to God for deliverance or for healing or for something. But sometimes, there's a delay in God's response. And he actually used the example of the Israelites who are in Egypt, and they've been there for 400 years. And for 400 years, people have been sending up their prayers to God for deliverance. And it's only 400 years later that God finally, taps Moses to do the job. That means for generations, people have been praying for healing, for delivery from slavery. But God said, you know what? I've got another agenda in mind. I'm going to hold off until I get my plan figured out. And I asked Clint later, I said, so you're saying that God's plan that people be enslaved was more important than people's actual experience of being enslaved? Like that God's timing is supposed to be the thing that makes sense, right? And I told him if that's true, which is what he was saying was true, then, his version of God's kind of a jerk. And actually, someone told me that several years ago when I described a similar idea I had around God. They said, boy, your God's kind of a son of a bitch. If God's timing is about making us wait and to toil and to go through pain and suffering and enslavement and all that nonsense, if God has a plan and agenda that connects to that, then how can we possibly believe in a loving God? It doesn't make sense. Now, I have been a minister for years. Okay, I've been to seminary and I've heard sermons and I've delivered sermons. And let me tell you, pastors do crazy acrobatics to make this work. They do crazy theological acrobatics to somehow prove that this makes sense, that God is all powerful and all loving. And when we ask for what we need and it doesn't happen, God's either saying no or wait. And we're supposed to somehow make sense of that in the context of a loving God. It's not true. It's not true. There is no such thing as God's timing. There's only such a thing as our timing. We are the ones who decide whether we're ready or not. And by the way, Jesus explicitly told us this multiple times. Jesus said, what I do, you can do. You have it within you to heal people, to open the waters, to calm the storms. Whatever you need to do, you've got it. Jesus was not calling us to follow him. He was calling us to be him. Okay? And that was the message he kept trying to deliver over and over and over again. And some of us got it, most of us didn't. So it is about our timing. Everything is about whether we are ready. How could it possibly benefit God to debilitate you? How is the universe being served by your debilitation, by your poverty, by your enslavement? Of course it's not being served. The world is not better because you can't show up in it. What does that say about you? That the world is better if you stay down. That somehow there's a bigger master plan being achieved because you stay in pain, because you stay in illness. It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense. But we are not ready to claim the blessing. And it's hard for us to agree that the truth is we're good at suffering. We're good at illness. We're good at struggle. We're good at it. Okay? And we're not good at being healthy. Well, we've never done it. Okay? So it is a new thing for us. And we're good at this. Not only are we good at coping and medicating and numbing and all those things around it, we're also good at making sense of it. Which is, by the way, what we say when we say, well, obviously, my suffering is achieving a higher good, or it's achieving God's purpose, or those are all making meaning. We're good at that. That's why we're not ready for the new thing, for the freedom, for the healing. But it's hard for us to claim that. It's hard for us to own that we're choosing something that hurts us. I get that. That doesn't make it true. that the world is benefiting from you at your 20%. No, it's not. Your family's not benefiting, the world's not benefiting, you're not benefiting. The reason we are here, we are spiritual creatures having a physical experience. We are here to take the limitations of our physical experience and transmute it into something amazing. We're here to combine this gorgeous experience of being physical creatures on this earth, along with the explosion of spiritual power. And you know what? That is not easy to do. That is a paradox we walk in. And it's a struggle, but we came on this earth to do this. We knew what we were doing. We came prepared to do this work. And then we got here and we got lost in our human. That's what we've done. We've got lost in our human. We got lost in the struggle, in the restrictions, and then we tried to make meaning of that. Even when I was a kid, I would hear people pray. And they'd pray for healing. They'd pray for deliverance. They'd pray for all these things. And they'd end with, if it's your will. And the second they said, if it's your will, I knew. They lost the power of the prayer. That invalidates the prayer. Because now you're saying, well, this is what I want. But you know what? God, if you want something different, I give up my will, my desire, my work. I defer it to a higher intelligence. But you are the higher intelligence. And that's something we're just going to have to agree to or not. If you don't agree to it, you don't agree to it. But it's still true. It's still true whether you agree to it or not. And there is no other power that can swoop in and change what you've willed to be true. Okay, there's no other person can come in and make you better. There's no, if you believe in the universe, or you believe in God or source, it has given you what you need to make your own decision. And it does not violate your decisions. It does not overwhelm your decisions. It supports your decisions. So, as hard as it may be to understand that or to agree to that, there is no way forward but to know that. If you are waiting for something to deliver you, you're waiting for yourself. And you have to show up for yourself. And if you don't, you won't be delivered. Because you're it. You're it. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. So that's basically what I wanted to say this morning. I had this conversation with my husband, and I basically told him I feel like he's setting his congregation up to continue to be disempowered or to feel as though they're disempowered. And I understand what he's doing. I understand why he's doing it. It's just that nothing can change that way. Whatever patterns we are currently in will be our reality forever. And they will get worse. Because you have to choose, again, in the Bible, you choose life or death. And whichever one you choose is what you get. And not moving forward, not healing, not claiming your power, not requiring restoration, and moving into that energy and learning how to do it, learning how to get good at that. Not doing that is the path of death, which is disintegration. So we don't ever stay where we are. We either get better or we get worse. So the disease gets stronger, the debilitation gets worse, because that's how it works. And it's easy for us, if you agree to all this stuff at this point, to kind of beat ourselves up and say, well, man, I've been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years. Who cares how long you've been doing it? Like, what does it matter that it took you here to get here to decide you're ready to take, your journey is your journey. It doesn't matter that, we've been sick forever. And we now are beating ourselves up. Beating yourself up because you've been ill is just taking your energy and wasting it in another pointless task. Who cares what you used to do? Now is where you are. Here is where you are. Here is where change is possible. You either claim it or you don't. And if you don't, on some level, you have to take ownership for that and not pawn it off onto God, because basically God's a scapegoat in that case. Because if I'm not getting well, God just must have a better plan, or God's a jerk. Either way, you'll just stay stuck. We'll just stay stuck as long as that continues to be our story. So that's all I have to say today. And I'm happy to have any responses you want to share. You can. And I realize that, this is not something that's easy to hear. But I appreciate you if you've gotten to the end of this message and you're willing to hear it, even if it really ticks you off or makes you feel uncomfortable, because that's the path of moving forward too. Feeling uncomfortable, knowing that something is off and being willing to own it and engage it. That's where you start hearing the voice of your soul. Your voice of your soul, which is not at all happy with you being debilitated or sick or enslaved or imprisoned. Your soul knows its purpose here very clearly, and it's very clearly trying to get us to accomplish that. And the more discomfort we have, the better, because it tells us that our soul is actively engaging us, working on us, not letting us go. So I welcome any responses you have, and I'll respond in turn. See you later. Bye.